Welcome back to Daily Dose. I'm Robert. I'm here with BJ and here with Susan. And we're talking about all things day one Deadpool program. Fascinating conversation. Look from a fan in BJ and someone who's never seen it. A self-described Deadpool virgin in Susan. and been told it's not a fit for her. We ended our last episode where Susan said, gosh, there's parts of this that sound intriguing, but can I skip the parts that are horrific, maybe, like, for instance, this 15 to 20 minute, whatever it is, torture scene where Wade Wilson becomes Deadpool. Susan, I'm going to reflect that question back to you. What do you think? Do you think you could get it without seeing those pieces?
Not as well.
Not as well.
Yes, if I didn't see them, but I heard them, I think I would still um, be affected if I just heard it. I think if I didn't hear it and just saw it, I think it would still do me in. Um, I think it's the length that when you say 15 or 20 minutes, that's a lot to ask someone
Well,
with movement disorder that gets kicked into gear with stressful stuff. It just, I can feel myself, you know, slinging myself around on the couch, and it's not something
it
I
does
anticipate.
it does take a long time for him to take that journey, but it's also like the opening of Saving Private Ryan, where there's a
I,
battle scene and everything else. And yes, it takes a long time to get through that scene, and it's so real and so visceral, and but you it takes a long time, but you're in it and experiencing it. And once you're engaged with the depth of the scene, it is frightening, it is
yeah,
hurtful, it is
that's a
painful.
great analogy. It really is, because when I reflect back on that, it's the fact that it lasted as long as it did, and they kept getting shot in the water. And if it was a couple minutes of it, it wouldn't have had the impact. It was
And you have
25 minutes, wasn't it, guys? I mean,
can you
it was,
imagine what the director's cut would look like? The whole battle, you know. So even though uh, the director has cut it down to those 10 or 15 minutes, it's still very impactful, and every moment is there for a reason.
yeah, yeah. That
So,
helps.
yeah, I like the corollary because Saving Private Ryan is probably the singularly most painful film I've seen, and Spielberg was incredibly protective of that, and in fact got an NC-17 rating at first for the gratuitous nature. But he said, "I need you to feel this." He said, "I'm not going to shortchange these veterans and what they went through," and I think that's a good corollary for this, that because because of how snarky Deadpool is, this could be dismissed as a really he's not a main Marvel character in the comic book world. Like, I mean, he's out there, but he's not a frontline guy, right? Um, so how do we get this to matter? Well, A, it's got to be a love story, and B, it's got to fricking hurt. In order for us to love him, we've got to see his humanity. And he suffers. And when he suffers, if we care about him, which again we do because he loves someone
Hmm.
vulnerable, seeing him suffer makes us go, okay, now I want what he wants. And you can see, because the driving force for him from that point forward is, I need to have me back so I can have Vanessa back, because he is certain Vanessa will never accept him in his physically compromised form. And so that's why he avoids her.
So
He's
there's a self-judgment.
Go ahead, BJ.
Well, and with people with Parkinson's, they assign themselves this stigma and shame that they're a shell of who they were. And yet they're still everything they were. They're a person who happens to have Parkinson's. Uh, but in order for them to move forward, they have to learn to love themselves with this condition.
And does he lose? I think one of you guys said everything changes. Does he? Is there still? Does he still recognize his heart and himself?
Well,
As he
That's
keeps.
the part of the journey. Yeah.
That's right. And you know, I mean, he one of the things he gains is a near immortality, right? He still feels the pain, but he also regenerates. For instance, he gets shot and pretty quickly it heals, but it hurts. It's not like Superman and it just bounces off him and nothing. No, it hurts. He gets his hand cut off. And he slowly
Oh,
generates this little baby hand, and they really have fun with it.
Yes.
And it's gross and silly. So he gets superpowers, but they hurt too.
Yeah.
that's one of the things I was going to ask. Is there any of the snark or any of the gallows humor that's somehow laced into that 15 or 20 minutes of torture? Or is that
Yeah,
impossible?
he torments the torturers
Yes.
for a
Really?
while, but after a while, it turns into straight pain.
Yeah.
Uh, let's come back for one more episode. This is great stuff. We don't have to tell the whole thing, but we've told a lot, and it sounds like we have gotten the Deadpool virgin to the edge of her considering some way of watching this.
Yeah,
Let's go
yeah.
back for one more. See you in a minute.